My mom had told me that I could start saying mom when I was just 6 months old, which is a lot earlier than when the average child begins speaking. In contrast, my brother did not start talking until when he was 10 months old. This conversation with my mom is what interested me in learning why children develop at different rates in different genders. There are many studies that focus on the topic of exploring the reason for girls having earlier cognitive development than boys, especially in language acquisition. I compared Len-Zaratsky's article called Sex Difference in Language Competence of 4-year children. Female advantages are mediated by phonological short-term memory with Nakajima, John, Perham, Hassan, Kinnell, and Bregni's article Gender Gaps in Cognitive and Social-Emotional Skills in Early Primary Grades. Evidence from rural Indonesia. The reason that I am interested in these two articles is because they have key differences in the way they approach the same questions. For example, one studies children in a developed nation whereas the other studies development in a developing nations. Both articles explore different domains of development that are associated to the topic. Lange and Zaratsky explore meaning in cognitive development. Nakajima, John, Prehan, Hassan, Kinnell, and Brickman explore cognitive development and social-emotional development. Under the domain of cognitive development, Lange and Zaratsky examine language competence by dividing it into 4 areas: articulation, vocabulary, grammar, and speech comprehension. While Nakajima, John, Prehan, Hassan, Kinnell, and Brickman investigate language competence by reading acquisition. Moreover, they explore cognitive development by mathematic performance. Lange and Zaratsky only briefly refer socioeconomic status under social-emotional development and use parents' education level as one of the variables. In contrast, Nakajima, John, Prehan, Hassan, Kinnell, and Brickman examine social competence by education duration and quality, parents' education level, and analyze emotional competence by emotional maturity. Seen as the basic of language acquisition, Lange and Zaratsky's study focused on the variable of phonological short-term memory, or so-called PSTN, which is defined as how short-term or working memory learn and apply phonological and acoustic information. The previous studies claimed that sex differences in language competence decrease over age. The other analyzed the data of 4-year-old German children from Motier and KISS.2, which is one kind of German language screening tests. They discovered confounding variables such as parents' education level by giving questionnaires to teachers and parents of the children involved in the study. The result indicated that girls do perform better than boys in all aspects from the test, whereas some are insignificant. The research also showed that girls have better PSTN ability naturally. Lastly, the data reveals that sex differences in language competence is caused by PSTN. These differences diminish with age. The limitations of the article is that the topic is in its novel stage of research. Further research may be required to further strengthen the evidence and find more significant factors. Although the authors try to depict as much confounding variable as possible, there might be some left out that could contribute to these differences, for example, personality. Another limitation is that Lange and Zaratsky did not analyze the data from different age groups. Furthermore, they attempted to establish a causal relationship between sex differences in PSTN and language competence without control group. Nakajima, John, Prehan, Hassan, Kinnell, and Brickman's article target total months enrolled in preschool as well as primary as 2 variables. The other one is parenting practices because earlier research reveals that parents tend to teach girls how to read more than with boys. The other one is parenting practices because earlier research reveals that parents tend to teach girls how to read more than with boys. In contrast to Lange and Zaratsky's article, the authors focus on social-emotional development as well as that claim that sex differences in reading and math ability increase by age. They used Oscar blended decomposition to measure whether there is correlation between gender gaps and the variables, and used early development instrument, or EDI, to explore both cognitive and social-emotional development. The subjects are 6 to 9-year-old children who live in rural Indonesia. The authors also apply language, mathematics, and abstract reasoning tests for examining the gender differences in cognitive development. It appears that girls generally perform better than boys in EDI-5 domains as well as in the language and mathematics tests, which establish the gender gaps. The results of girls having longer duration of enrollment and receive more parenting practices may explain why girls have better achievement in preschool and primary. Sex differences in cognitive development have strong significance with preschool and primary enrollment duration, but conversely, social-emotional development is linked with parenting expectations. One of the data that's being collected is the self-report from children's parents, which can be biased due to the expectation of the observer. Sanders, Lange, and Zaraski's article. Further research is needed as this is a novel topic. Nakajima, John, Brehan, Hansen, Kineo, and Brickman's article focus on the environment factors only. Growth advantage appears in the early stage of child development, but it is still controversial whether the gaps decrease or increase by age, because both studies investigated the topic in brand new ways. Both articles barely mention about the interaction about nature and nurture, which may also be important to consider.